Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's rise to double champ is one of the craziest stories in MMA. He joined the UFC in 2013, already holding 2 belts from Cage Warriors, and said from day one he'd be a 2-division champ here too. He made his debut against Marcus Brimage and finished him in under 90 seconds. Then he ran through guys like Max Holloway, Diego Brandao, and Dustin Poirier, and that win over Dustin was huge. It proved he was more than hype. By early 2015, the UFC gave him a title shot against Jose Aldo, who ruled the featherweight division for years. But Aldo pulled out 2 weeks before the fight with a rib injury, so Conor ended up facing Chad Mendes for the interim title. Even though Mendes took him down over and over, Conor kept getting back up and finished him in the second round. Then came UFC 194. Aldo finally showed up and Conor knocked him out in just 13 seconds. That's still the fastest finish in a UFC title fight. Just like that, Conor became the undisputed king at 145. But Conor wasn't done yet. Next, he set his sights on the lightweight belt and called out the champ Rafael dos Anjos. But RDA pulled out due to a foot injury. That's when Nate Diaz stepped in on short notice and submitted Conor. They rematched 5 months later, and Conor came back with a better game plan. He fought smart, used leg kicks, and won by a majority decision. After that, he finally got his lightweight title shot, this time against Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205. He dominated every second of that fight, dropped Eddie multiple times, and finished him in round 2. He became the first fighter ever to hold 2 UFC belts at the same time. Daniel Cormier. He started out as a heavyweight and stayed undefeated, just ragdolling guys with his Olympic-level wrestling. But when he got to the UFC, his teammate Cain Velasquez was the heavyweight champ at the time. Out of respect and because he didn't want to fight his friend for the belt, DC dropped down to light heavyweight. At 205, he looked unstoppable. He beat guys like Dan Henderson and Pat Cummins. Then he got his first title shot against John Jones in 2015. He lost that fight and Jones stayed champ, but not for long. A few months later, John got into legal trouble and the UFC stripped him of the title, so the belt was vacant. That's when DC got another shot, this time against Anthony Rumble Johnson. Rumble hit him hard early and almost knocked him out, but DC stayed calm and used his wrestling. He kept the pressure on and wore Rumble down. By the third round, Rumble was tired and DC took his back and choked him out to become the new light heavyweight champion. He defended that belt a few times and eventually got a rematch with John Jones. This time Jones knocked him out, but then failed a drug test. The result got overturned to a no contest and DC kept his belt. Then, in 2018, DC went back up to heavyweight to fight Stipe, the greatest UFC heavyweight at the time. DC knocked him out in the first round and made history as the second fighter to ever hold 2 UFC belts at the same time. Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo's double champ run is one of the most underrated in UFC history. Most people saw him as just a wrestler at first, which to be fair, he was a damn good one. He won an Olympic gold medal in wrestling and was actually the youngest American to ever do it, a record that held until 2024. But in the UFC, he had to prove he could hang with elite strikers and killers. He started at flyweight and went 4-0 pretty quick, but then ran into Demetrius Johnson, the long-reigning champ who was basically untouchable. Henry lost that fight in the first round and a lot of people wrote him off, but instead of disappearing, he got better. A lot better actually, and earned a rematch with DJ 2 years later. At UFC 227, Henry pulled off a huge upset. He edged out a super close decision and ended Demetrius Johnson's legendary title reign, which had lasted over 6 years. That win made him the new flyweight king, but he didn't stop there. Next, he moved up to bantamweight to fight Marlon Moraes for the vacant title. And early on, it didn't look good. Marlon was cooking him up with leg kicks. But Henry dug deep, turned up the pressure, and completely broke Marlon with his pace and toughness. He finished him in the third round and became the 4th fighter in UFC history to hold 2 belts at the same time. The crazy part is that he defended both titles, something not many double champs actually do. He beat TJ Dillashaw at flyweight and then defended the bantamweight belt against Dominic Cruz before retiring on top. John Jones. John Jones is a name that's always been tied to greatness and a little bit of chaos. He became the youngest UFC champion ever at just 23 when he completely ran through Mauricio Shogun Rua to win the light heavyweight belt. From there, it was pure domination. He went on a wild run beating legends like Rampage Jackson, Rashad Evans, Vitor Belfort, Daniel Cormier. The list just keeps going. His fight IQ, crazy reach, creativity, and wrestling made him almost impossible to beat. But while his record was stacked, things outside the cage were a mess. He got stripped of the title multiple times because of legal issues and failed drug tests. That kind of became his pattern. Come back, win the belt, and get stripped again. Still, when it came to actually fighting, nobody could touch him. He eventually walked away from light heavyweight in 2020 after defending the belt against Dominic Reyes. Then he disappeared for 3 years. People weren't sure if he'd ever return. In 2023, he finally came back, this time at heavyweight. And not just for any fight, he stepped right into a title shot against Cyril Gane, one of the most athletic and dangerous heavyweights in the division. People were nervous, wondering how Jones would look after all that time off and the jump in weight. But in classic Jon Jones fashion, he made it look easy. Took Gon down early, locked in a guillotine, and made him tap under 3 minutes. Just like that, Jon Jones became the heavyweight champ. GSP. GSP is one of the cleanest and most disciplined fighters the sport's ever seen. He wasn't flashy or loud, but he was a total machine in the cage. GSP dominated the welterweight division for years with sharp striking, elite wrestling, and a fight IQ that was just next level. He first won the welterweight belt back in 2006, but lost it to Matt Serra in one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. Most guys would have crumbled after that, but GSP came back stronger, beat everyone they put in front of him, and got his revenge on Serra a year later. From there, he went on one of the most dominant title runs ever. He defended the welterweight belt 9 times, nobody could figure him out. Then in 2013, after a super close fight with Johnny Hendricks, GSP shocked everyone by walking away from the sport while still holding the belt. He just dipped and took a 4-year break, and most people figured he was done for good. But in 2017, out of nowhere, he came back and not at welterweight. He moved up to middleweight to fight Michael Bisping for the belt. GSP had never fought at that weight in the UFC, but you couldn't tell. He looked just as sharp, dropped Bisping, and then choked him out in the 3rd round to become the middleweight champ. That win made him a 2-division champ, and what's wild is that was his only fight at middleweight. BJ Penn. BJ Penn's journey to becoming a double champ was wild. And honestly, there's never been anyone quite like him. He wasn't just good, he was a straight-up prodigy. He became the first American to win gold at the World Jiu-Jitsu Championship as a black belt, and he did it after only a few years of training. That's where the nickname the Prodigy came from. He jumped into MMA with almost no pro experience and still made an impact right away. After just 3 UFC fights, he already had a shot at the lightweight title, but ended up losing. Then out of nowhere, he moved up to welterweight and challenged Matt Hughes, who was running the division back then. BJ shocked everyone by submitting Hughes in the 1st round and becoming the UFC welterweight champ. But here's where it gets crazy. Right after winning the belt, BJ left the UFC over a contract dispute and went off to fight in other organizations. He didn't return until years later. When he came back, he dropped back down to lightweight, and that's where he really hit his stride. He dominated Joe Stevenson to win the lightweight belt, then defended it against top guys like Sean Shirk, Kenny Florian, and Diego Sanchez. During that run, BJ looked unstoppable. He had sharp boxing, world-class grappling, crazy flexibility, and a straight-up warrior mindset. Yeah, his record took a hit in the later years, but BJ was only the 2nd fighter in UFC history to win belts in 2 different weight classes. And he did it before jumping weight was even a thing. Randy Couture. Out of everyone on this list, Randy Couture deserves the most props. He didn't even start MMA until his mid-30s, but he made up for lost time quickly. He was already a decorated Greco-Roman wrestler, so when he came into the UFC, he used that wrestling to control guys and wear them down. And back then, the sport was still figuring itself out, but Randy came in like he was built for it. He won the UFC heavyweight title in just his 4th pro fight. And the crazy part is that he was always undersized at heavyweight. He was going up against guys way bigger than him, but he still held it down. He lost the belt not long after, but then won it again. That pretty much became a theme in his career. He'd lose, bounce back, and win again. But the big turning point came when he decided to drop down to light heavyweight. At light heavyweight, Randy took on Chuck Liddell, who was on a crazy run and known for putting people to sleep. But Randy outworked him, beat him up, and got the TKO win. After that, he faced Tito Ortiz and dominated him too. And he still wasn't done. At 43 years old, Randy came back to heavyweight and took on Tim Sylvia for the belt. Sylvia was way bigger and younger. Pretty much everyone thought Randy didn't stand a chance. But Randy controlled him the whole 5 rounds and ended up winning the heavyweight title for the 3rd time. And proved that age doesn't matter for people like Randy and Kuwapt. I am a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, by the way. Alex Pereira. This story starts in the world of professional kickboxing. Alex Pereira was a powerful Brazilian fighter with indigenous roots and a tough upbringing. He was battling alcohol addiction at just 13 and working 12-hour shifts to help support his family. Kickboxing became his way out. In that world, he fought Adesanya and beat him twice. After that, Adesanya moved to MMA and quickly became a UFC star, winning the middleweight title in 2019. Pereira stayed in kickboxing and made history by becoming a 2-division champ in glory. But even as a double champ, he wasn't earning much. Then, in 2020, Adesanya made comments that fired Pereira up. He said, "He watches all my fights, and every time I fight, he says I beat that guy. At the end of the day, no one knows who he is." In another interview, he said Pereira couldn't hang in the UFC. That gave Pereira the final push. He switched to MMA, and in 2021, he joined the UFC. With deadly power, he tore through the division. In just his 4th UFC fight, he got a title shot against Adesanya at UFC 281 for the middleweight belt. He was losing on the scorecard, but landed a mean left hook in round 5 and finished Izzy to become a champ. They ran it back, and this time Adesanya knocked him out, but Pereira didn't slow down. He moved up to light heavyweight, beat Jan Blachowicz in a close fight, then faced Yuri Prochazka for the vacant title and got the belt. 2 UFC titles in under 2 years, he came in with revenge and made history.